When you first decided to start playing Rainbow Six Siege, I'm sure defending the bomb sites seemed daunting. There is a ton of knowledge required to be good at defending that spans across multiple topics, which can leave you feeling overwhelmed. My goal for today's video is to provide you with the knowledge necessary to not only understand the fundamentals, but to also thrive at nearly every skill level. So whether you find yourself struggling on the defense with only a few hundred hours, or if you're a high level player looking to expand your knowledge on the subject, you'll definitely find something in this video that will aid you in your efforts to climb the ranked bracket. Now let's go ahead and get into the video. Now obviously the very first thing we need to address is the actual goal of the defense. And as I said in my attack guide, no, the objective of Siege is not to eliminate the enemy team. The actual goal for the defenders specifically is to burn out the clock and to prevent the attackers from planting. Time is on your side, so play like it. Don't overpeak when you don't need to, and try to use your gadgets and utility to slow down the attack. Your KD does not matter in Siege. What does is stopping the enemy from planting the diffuser. Getting kills is just a side effect of that. The sooner you understand this and apply it on your gameplay, the sooner you'll see yourself start to climb the ranks. But now that we understand the basic goal, the next thing we need to address is how to actually accomplish it. Well, to do so, you need to understand the 7 pillars of defending. The first is the roles on the defense. The second is team composition. The third is communication and intel gathering. The fourth is site setup. The fifth is roaming. The sixth is anchoring. And the 7th pillar is plant denial and site retakes. I'll be explaining each pillar one by one in detail, and hopefully by the end of the video, you'll have a deeper understanding of how to defend in Rainbow Six Siege. Now, the first and arguably most important pillar to understand is the roles on defense. The roles on defense are typically named after where you will be positioned in relation to the bomb site. There are 3 main roles that you'll find yourself playing on defense. The first is your typical roamers. These people play off site and act as the first opponents the attackers will encounter during their push, and their ultimate goal is to survive as long as possible to waste the attackers' time and to hurt their drone economy. And the other 2 roles are quite similar, being the soft anchor and normal anchor. Basically, these players typically play rather stationary and will stick to a general location close by to the bomb site. The main difference between the 2 being that a soft anchor plays slightly off site, typically in a power position nearby, and a normal anchor plays directly on the bomb site and hunkers down for the whole round. I'll go more in depth on these roles later in the video in their own sections, but you need to have these terms down to understand everything involved in this video. Speaking of the importance of these terms, it is now time to discuss team composition. If you want to win your rounds in Siege, you need to make sure you have this down. Typically, you want 1 normal anchor, 2 soft anchors, and 2 roamers. This can change based on the size of the bomb site and also what map you're playing on, but this is a good general rule to abide by. The reason you want a composition like this is because if you bring too many roamers on your team, then the attack can easily overwhelm the bomb site and get a plant down. But if you don't have enough soft anchors or roamers, you will allow the attackers to go through with their plans uninterrupted, and it will allow them to execute onto the bomb site with plenty of time left on the clock, meaning they are not under pressure whatsoever. You want the attackers to constantly be under pressure by your team to slow them down. Without soft anchors or roamers, you can't accomplish that. Now, what operators do you bring to accomplish these different roles? Well, this will depend on your preferences and needs, but generally for anchors and soft anchors, you want operators that are 2 or 3 speeds with a lot of utility useful for setting up on or around the site. Typically, operators like Cade, Mute, Azami, Doc, Wamai, and Malusi are operators that fill these roles. The reason operators like this are typically anchors is because they are slow or their gadgets are required to be deployed near or around the bomb site to be the most useful. And so having them roam off site doesn't really make sense in the long run. Now for roamers, you typically want 3 or 2 speeds since they make less noise while moving, with gadgets that can support them on their roam, or with gadgets that can be easily set up in the bomb site and forgotten about. Good examples of this can include Vigil, Oryx, Skopos, Bandit, Mozzie, and Legion. Now none of this is concrete. You can realistically have anyone on site. The possibilities are up to you. Just make sure you aren't placing all your 3 speeds in the bomb site and sending all your 3 armors off to roam. As long as you aren't doing that, then you should be fine. Moving past team composition, it is now time to discuss another extremely important aspect of the defense, your communication and intel gathering. Technically, this applies to both the attack and defense, and I covered this idea extensively in my attacking guide, but since communication is so important in Siege, I think it's worth covering here as well. First off, throughout the round, you need to be constantly talking to your team and in voice chat. Every time you hear an enemy pushing somewhere, you kill someone, or the enemies destroy something, you need to inform your team. If your teammates don't know about a wall being breached, or they don't know what window is open, they may make a play that results in them getting killed. Also, when communicating information, make sure to distinguish between what's called a sound call and a normal call. A sound call is when a call out is based on audio and not visual information. And since audio in Siege can be somewhat unreliable, you want to let your team know the information you are giving them is based on sound by ending your call out with sound call. For example, let's say I have someone walking up yellow stairs on Consulate. I hear them doing that, but I don't actually see them. What I'd say in game chat is, I think someone's walking up yellow stairs, or I'd say, walking up yellow stairs, sound call. If you make for sure that your teammates can clearly distinguish from a sound call and a normal call, it'll let them know that the position of that opponent isn't concrete. They're just somewhere in that general location. Also, another thing that you should be communicating in Siege that a lot of people forget about is what you're doing in the round. If you're holding an angle, make for sure you let your teammates know that, so that way they stop watching it. For example, if you're watching yellow stairs on Consulate, let your team know that. And that also applies for if you're going to rotate off of an angle. So if you stop watching yellow stairs, make for sure you let your team know that and tell them where you're going and tell them where you're rotating to. This will help your teammates have a bigger picture of what's going on in the round and where all of their teammates are positioned, which is going to be beneficial for everyone involved. And finally, when communicating with your team, remember to keep it civil. When you die, don't get mad, or at the very least, don't do it in game chat. And definitely don't blame your teammates for a lost round, even if they were coincidentally at fault. This will just cause them to play worse, and it will spread toxicity in your own team. And one of the biggest enemies to your team is going to be yourself at that point. Outside of that, just make sure you're communicating any information you get, and you should be good. Okay, now it's time to discuss what to actually do in a round, starting off with what you should be doing in the prep phase. Well, this is obviously when you should be placing your gadgets down, reinforcements, and making rotates between the bomb sites to prepare for the attacker's push. Now, where you should do those things is obviously going to depend massively on the operator you are using and the bomb site. If you want a more in-depth guide on how to set up bomb sites, I have a close to 4-hour long video discussing how to set up each one in the game. However, just to give you some general rules to follow, typically reinforcing walls between the bomb sites is a bad idea. Any outside walls should be reinforced and electrified with bandit or cade no matter what, and hatches into the bomb site should receive the same treatment. The reasons for this is because obviously the attackers are going to try and abuse the outside walls to their advantage, so you want to deny that as much as possible. And hatches give the enemy a key advantage of being able to look into the bomb site from the high ground and to drop into the bomb site if they get the opportunity to. The only time you should not reinforce hatches into the site is if your strategy involves defending it from above, which does happen in some niche cases on certain maps, but that generally is an outlier. And then for walls between the site, you don't want to reinforce those because you want rotation holes in them to allow your team to freely rotate between the sites. But outside of these general rules, you'll just have to learn from experience the best ways to set up every bomb site, because if I went in depth on this topic, this video would easily be 6+ hours long. There's just way too much to cover when it comes to individual gadgets and reinforcement placement and how that changes with each bomb site, especially considering that site setups aren't objective. You can take your own creative liberty with site setups, which can allow for some really unique ideas, but obviously if I went into every single site setup in Rainbow Six Siege, we'd be here for a while. But as long as you follow these rules and apply them, you should be on the right track for a great prep phase. And once you get through the prep phase, you now need to fill in the job of the role you are playing. The first role we will cover is anchor, since they are the simplest and what I'd recommend most new players start out playing. The role of the anchor, as I discussed earlier, is to play on the bomb site. However, because your teammates are going to be playing around the site, you typically won't encounter the attackers until later in the round. So you should spend the beginning of the round on your cameras, calling out as much as you can. This could potentially provide your teammates with important information on where the attackers are coming from, especially if you get on the outside cams at the start of the round. And then as the round progresses, you should continue to periodically hop on cams to find vital information. But once someone on your team inevitably dies, they can watch cams for you, and from that point forward, you should be focused on holding down the bomb site. Outside of this, the only other thing you really have to worry about is watching for the attackers trying to pull off a rush strategy. As long as you're on the lookout for that and you can accomplish these simple things, you can easily be an effective anchor. Now, when soft anchoring, your role is a little different. Typically, you are tasked with playing on a power position like a staircase or behind a deployable shield. Basically, a power position in Siege is an area of the map that is an extraordinary vital room or area for the attackers to get control of for them to advance on the bomb site. A great example of this would be rafters on Clubhouse when you are defending cache and CCTV. Rafters technically isn't part of the bomb site, but it is vital to hold control of to prevent the attackers from planting in the site. Another good example would be 90 on Villa when defending Aviator Games, because holding it down prevents the attackers from pushing red side and it prevents them from walking down Bookshelves Hall. Now, when defending all these positions, your goal is to just just waste time and hold on to that position, sometimes even at the cost of your own life. Don't feel pressured to get any kills whatsoever. If you can manage to waste a few minutes of the attacker's time, that is plenty of value. Also, if you feel like you're at risk of dying soon and an opportunity presents itself, try to fall back to the bomb site and just give the attackers a position. Sometimes it's more worth it to just save your life in the long run. The more you play this soft anchoring role, the better you'll be at gauging when to do this, but if you follow these general rules, you should adapt to the role pretty fast. Now for the final and most difficult role, roaming, your goal is to obviously roam off the bomb site. A common misconception about roaming though is that you should just sit in a corner and wait to flank the attackers later in the round when they aren't looking. This may work at lower ranks, but once you climb the ranks, you will be punished for this horribly. The true way to roam is to play in areas where the attackers are normally looking to start their initial push, or in areas where you can cut off the attackers from rotating. Some examples of this are Piano on Villa when you are playing on Aviator Games, or Rafters on Night Haven when you are playing in the basement. The reason why these roams are so strong is because they force the attackers to deal with you. If the attackers want to walk up main or red stairs on Villa, they will have to kill you in Piano. If the enemy wants to play vert above the bomb site on Night Haven, they will have to clear you out of Rafters. This is the kind of situation that you want to create by roaming. You want to force your opponents to have to worry about you and to waste time on you. By roaming in unimportant faraway locations, the attackers isn't wasting any time clearing you, and you'll have to rely on your ability to flank them, which a lot of the times won't work if the attackers have proper flank drones and coordination. Another way that you can roam in pretty niche situations is by playing below the bomb site to punish the attackers once they push the site or when they enter a common area of the map. This can be done with operators like Pulse and Valkyrie. A great bomb site to do this on is Aviator on Villa once again. You can roam in Piano on this site and be able to instantly nitro a planter anywhere inside the bomb site. This kind of roam is extremely dependent on the map though. Some maps don't have many destructible floors, and so obviously on those maps, this strat won't be applicable. Also, a lot of the time, players who roam below the bomb site with a Pulse or a Valkyrie watch as their anchors start to die off, but will hold their ground. While this will get you a free kill, a lot of the time, if your anchors are saying they need help, you should probably just go back to the site depending on how many attackers are left. Speaking of going back to the bomb site, now that you understand where to roam, another skill you need to know to be able to effectively roam is to understand when to just fall back. Typically, this is going to entirely revolve around what your anchors are communicating to you. If they're telling you they are getting pressured on site and they need help, then you should probably come back. Also, if you notice other teammates in other areas of the map dying while you're just getting no action, you likely need to rotate as well. However, you should also rotate if you are actively being pushed and you know your death is imminent. You can typically tell this by A, the amount of drones swarming your position, and B, the audio of people around. If you hear a lot of people trying to surround you and you see a lot of drones, it might be time to fall back or at the very least reposition. Keep in mind, as stated earlier in this role section, a roamer's goal is to waste time and destroy drones. So if you fall back, in the long run, you'll be wasting time while keeping your team's man count even compared to if you just took a gunfight and died in the process. Now, since we've gone through every role in the game and you understand the basics, I now want to go over one of the more complicated topics in this video, that being site retakes / clutch situations. If you don't know what a site retake is, this is basically when the attackers get control of the bomb site and they get a plant down, and the defenders have to take back control of the bomb site to clutch up the round. This is extremely difficult, but there are some things you can do to try to turn the round around for your team. Firstly, if the attackers are inside the bomb site, and especially if the diffuser is down, it's time to get aggressive. You need to try to pick up some kills to make up some ground and give your team an opening. However, it needs to be smart aggression. You need to try and take a gunfight on an attacker that is by themselves to increase your chances of winning the gunfight. You can do that by using any information you have of the enemy's current location to push in a way where you are only vulnerable to one of them at a time. Once you've lowered the enemy's man count substantially, somewhere close to being even, you or one of your teammates need to hop on the diffuser to bait the attackers into swinging. And once they do inevitably push you, use audio to make an accurate judgment on how close they are. If you won't have time to complete the diffuse, get off of it and swing them. If you will, then obviously try to stick it out. That's the basic gist. Obviously, the remaining amount of attackers, your and your opponent's gadgetry, and the attacker's positioning will change your decision making, but the underlying rule is the same, which is start off with calculated aggression, and then once you've retaken the bomb site, go for the defuse. This will help you be way more consistent in clutch situations, and you'll also notice yourself claw back a lot of rounds from the clutches of defeat. Anyways, hopefully you all found today's video useful, covering how to defend in Rainbow Six Siege. I just wanted to update the video I did ages ago with some new information and updated tips to help all of you out. If you did find it useful, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. Now, if you want to watch another video just like this one, a video will be popping up on your screen right now that I'm sure you all enjoy. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.